This is HERkys Voice, a conversation with special Hawkeye guests focusing on the stories and people behind Hawkeye athletics. Now, here's the host of HERkys Voice, Iowa women's tennis coach, Sasha Schmid.
Hello, Hawkeye fans. Happy New Year. It's 2023, and I'm thrilled to be starting a new year of HERkys Voice conversations with our guest. I appreciate all of you tuning in each week. This is an exciting year as we celebrate 50 years of Iowa women's athletics. And to start this year on HERkys Voice, I was honored to be joined by our new Deputy Director of Athletics and Chief Operating Officer, Beth Goetz. I loved hearing Beth's personal story and learning about her journey to the University of Iowa. I'm so glad Beth is a Hawkeye. Take a listen to Beth Goetz.
Hawkeye fans, join Rob Brooks and Lisa Bluter each week from 6 to 7 for Hawk Talk at Bumps Restaurant presented by Oak Knoll. View the season schedule at HawkeyeSports.com.
2023 is the year we celebrate 50 years of Iowa women's athletics. To celebrate this incredible milestone, the Iowa Athletic Department and HERkys Committee will be hosting a weekend in May with several events, including the Black and Gold Gala. The gala is open to the public. It will be held in Carver Hawkeye Arena on Saturday, May 6th. Save the date invites are coming out soon. Tell your friends and keep an eye out for registration information. Go Hawks!
You don't have to go to the game to get a game program. You can download it now by visiting the game day page on HawkeyeSports.com. That's right, the game program is now digital and it's free. So check it out. Get the roster, the stats, and fascinating stories about today's matchup. Just go to HawkeyeSports.com and click on Game Day.
Welcome to HERkys Voice and welcome to 2023. We are officially in the 50th year of Iowa women's athletics, and I couldn't think of a more perfect guest to start us off in January of 2023. I'm delighted to be joined today with Beth Goetz, who is our Deputy Director of Athletics and our Chief Operating Officer for Iowa Athletics. Sitting down today, Beth, welcome to HERkys Voice.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so excited to get to do this to kick off the year and still feel excitement about being a new Hawkeye. So.
I've been waiting for this too because I love all of the conversations I've had with the guest. I feel like I finish and have such a better understanding because we get a chance to learn about your story. And I want to hear about your family and where you grew up and your early years. I think that's just so informative. And I'm so excited that our Hawkeye listeners get to hear your story today. So tell me a little bit about, I know you're a Midwestern girl, St. Louis. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and your mom and dad.
Yeah, so grew up on the north side of St. Louis in the suburbs. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a independent contractor, and I'm the oldest of 4 girls. So this happens with age, but just so grateful because I just feel like I had this idyllic, upbringing and filled with all sorts of sports for 4 girls. I think I know they always wanted a boy, and can we put them in sports? They kept trying to have a boy. After the 4th, they gave up. But we all played sports, and we're running around the neighborhood and doing all those great things. And so really fortunate to have that environment and the support of my mom and dad.
Was your mom an elementary school teacher?
She was. She taught 5th grade.
Oh, I love 5th grade.
She did
5th grade
too.
Teachers are the best. Yeah. That's like a great history year and social studies projects, and I love 5th grade teachers.
Yeah, she was amazing. And well, this will give you some insight into my psyche, although maybe not in a good way, but I loved school. So never wanted to miss school. And so on spring break, my favorite thing in grade school was that it never aligned. She taught at a different school than I went to. And so during my spring break, I would go to school
with her.
And when I was in 5th grade, I sat in her class, but regardless of which year it was, I'd get to sit in. I mean, who does that over spring break? But yeah, I had a great appreciation.
That's kind of the oldest child too, right? Like a little bit. Tell me the names of your sisters.
In birth order, so it's me and then Kristen, Sarah, and Katie.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And the age differences?
Oh, we're give or take all about 2 years apart.
Okay. So you really did kind of grow up together and
we did.
Same schools, usually.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, fifth grade, I feel like, I don't know why, but I hear this with a lot of my friends. Fifth grade teachers, it's kind of that year when you really remember your teachers. Like you seem to really remember your fifth grade teachers. So that is so incredibly cool. And were your parents into sports or how did that get started? Where was the athletics drive?
Yeah, my mom was the athlete. So she played, I think she played a little bit of everything, but I know she played field hockey and played basketball. She used to tell me she played half court, which I was well into adulthood before I understood what her version of half court meant. But I remember even as a kid, she played in the church softball league, and we'd, in the summer ride bikes up and watch her, play slow pitch and do those types of things. But she's definitely the athlete and definitely the competitive one in the family.
So were you just kind of into everything, right? They put you in the soccer league, the softball league, the basketball league. Is that how it kind of worked? Yeah.
Back when you used to be able to do that, which I hate for kids today that they don't get that experience, but played a little bit of everything. Growing up, and there wasn't that pressure to sort of choose as early as there is today. So
when you got to high school, was it soccer?
In high school, I played softball and basketball and soccer, and then sort of phased out the other. So I played softball through my junior year.
What position?
Pitcher and first base.
Cool.
And then I played 2 years of basketball. I was great. I think I was pretty good at defense. Apparently, you were supposed to be able to, shoot and do things with your hands, which didn't work well for the soccer player. So I don't know if I chose soccer or soccer chose me by default, but that's where I landed.
And what position in soccer?
Defensive mid, stopper, which kids today would be like, I don't even know what that means. But defensive mid.
And did you have some coaches along the way that just really impacted you in these great ways?
Yeah, and really in every sport as you look back and think about it. So, you learn something a little bit different from everyone. But I think when I knew that I could, or someone sort of said, hey, you can continue playing and you can play at a higher level. I joined a different club team. I guess it would have been maybe my junior year in high school, and just got exposed to a different level of playing. He was one of the primary things was trying to connect you to opportunities in college, which had just never really occurred to me in that way before. And so I had all these new experiences that sort of said, hey, I want to continue to, get better at my sport and use this as an opportunity to go to college. So
it wasn't until junior year when that kind of became a vision.
Yeah, until then I just loved playing, and I was a competitor, and I don't know, it was probably a version of the clubs that I did play for, and college was always college was always in the plans.
Yeah,
I always knew I wanted to go to college, but we didn't know. My parents didn't know much about what that meant in terms of athletics, and I was also on the cusp of there weren't the number of women's soccer programs, across the country that there are today.
So how did that recruiting process go?
Yeah, so with my club team, we'd been visiting different places, and so you started to, the old school, you get the letter in the mail. Yes. and explore different institutions.
That was when they had the printed media guide.
Yes, all of those things. Some phone calls that you just had, on the old school phone in your house, by the way. You didn't know how to navigate those. But I should
tell our listeners that you and I are the same age.
Yes.
So when you say these things, I just so identify with it, right? Like, because I was the exact same in the exact same situation. Yeah, very fun.
Of course. So, so that was sort of part of the process. And so I had some, it wasn't that I had this level in mind. I don't even know if I knew what that meant, and I wasn't an all-star athlete by any stretch of the imagination. So it was really just about fit. And there was a private 2-year school that we had gone on a trip as a team to play, and they were at the time number 1 in the country, and there weren't a lot of Division I programs in women's soccer, as I mentioned. And so that became a possibility because there were all of these programs that were about to start up. And this institution I went to is called Brevard. It's in the mountains of North Carolina. My family, we camped growing up. We did a lot of hiking, and Brevard is just this beautiful, enchanting place. And they were, again, had a really great program. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful fit for me. And that's where I landed, and then had just incredible from a competitive standpoint, incredible opportunities leaving there because I was sort of coming out at the right time.
Wow. And you knew that when you visited, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I really did. And things just sort of fell into place with, there were some some athletic scholarships, but it turned out I had a great opportunity from an academic standpoint. And I still remember my club coach coming to dinner at my house with my parents and saying, because this was 12 hours from home, and saying, this isn't because she's trying to get away from you, and she loves you, she loves the family, and just wants to experience this. So
Did he kind of have to convince mom and dad?
I don't know if convince is the right word.
Reassure,
but reassure them. And again, I was the oldest, the first. I mean, we didn't come from means, and so how do you navigate all these things is just overwhelming, particularly when you've got three more coming.
Yes.
Behind you. And so he was, he was an incredible support to me then and throughout my life. So.
I love when you can look back at these people that's a critical moment, right?
Yeah.
Set your life on this course where you've never left collegiate athletics.
Yeah.
And then off you went.
That's right.
And you had a successful career. You are in their Hall of Fame, Beth.
Well, like I said, I don't know that the sport was my gift, but I just love to compete, and I think there are lots of things, as as a coach, that an athlete can bring to the table, and maybe I like to think some of that was really about my technical ability, but I think more of it was probably the connection and the the ability to try and bring a team together that I think I enjoyed and probably excelled at more than how many balls I could put in the back of the net. But but you're being very humble. They definitely have acknowledged you as being incredibly successful, and that's a huge high honor. From that experience, you moved on to Clemson. Yeah. How did that come about? So it was really phenomenal, the number. I mean, for us today to think about this, but the visits I went on from Brevard were Auburn, mostly down south because that's where the other school was. I mean, Missouri, my home state institution, still didn't have women's soccer. And
at that time, Iowa didn't either.
Iowa didn't either. Actually, not many in the Midwest did. I think Indiana did, but there were just not that many programs here. But in the South, I looked at Wake Forest, Auburn, UNC Charlotte, a handful of others. And I think I probably knew the second I walked onto Clemson's campus. But it was, I played for a husband and wife team, Tracy Bates-Leon and Ray, and Tracy had won 4 national championships at North Carolina, played for the United States national team.
Wow.
And both of them are just phenomenal people. And so it was, in the end, it was a pretty easy decision to have a chance to go there and get to play for them.
Really cool to have these two experiences. I think anytime you're in a team dynamic, every team is different. So you probably learned so much from your time at Brevard, and then to be able to get a whole new coach and perspective and culture at Clemson. Just invaluable to be able to do the comparisons and the positives from each, and just it probably made you even that much more of a whole person having two experiences in college.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that, because I think if somebody said, hey, what would you have chosen? Like, well, surely you would have gone to Clemson and spent all 4 years there. And I loved and valued both of those experiences equally. And you've got this 900 student small school, all 20 of us, by the way, in a 15 passenger van, which you cannot do anymore. Probably shouldn't have done then. To this walking out to be announced in the middle of Death Valley, which is Clemson's football stadium, with just people screaming and cheering and just completely different experiences in that way.
Oh.
But both incredibly special. So I'm really grateful that that's the way my path unfolded, and I got to experience both of those things.
So were you one of those student athletes that you finish and it's like, wait, I don't want to leave this. I don't want to go to the real world. Like, I want to stick around and keep feeling this, being a part of something larger than myself in athletics.
I absolutely was, but it didn't tie for me to work in college athletics at that moment.
Really?
So I struggled, which is one of the things we talk about today. And I just came from a DNI event where we're talking about that this is not, who you are, it's what you do. And I struggled after playing and, trying to figure out like, well, then who am I? Right. Because it's all you know. But my undergrad was in psych. I was going to be a therapist, and I don't know how I chose psychology or therapy, but I think somebody said, oh, hey, this is the path you should go. And I thought, oh, well, okay, that sounds good. And so you just start down that road. But my college coach, Tracy, just kept saying, you really should try coaching. You really should try coaching. And you work camps and things like that. And I thought they finally were like, well, why don't you just do it? You're going to grad school anyway. Why not just coach while you're doing that? And so in some ways it was a little bit of me just saying, okay, well, that's what coach said I should do. So I'll try it. And it wasn't a thought to change the path. But there were other plans and I got in and obviously never left.
I can identify with that because, and I don't know, like when I was growing up, I didn't know of many women that were coaches. Like it was almost like that I didn't see it, so I didn't think that it was an option. And I had a coach that also encouraged me to do that as well. Yeah. But there really, it wasn't like when I was in school, college coaching was even a profession, really. I mean, you think back on how much things have changed since when we were in school.
Yeah. Well, you think about, even if you had wanted to, the number of sports management programs across the country now is really significant, and there were only a few of those back then. And so even if you had wanted to consciously choose that path, I'm not sure there was an easy mechanism to do that. But,
yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, if you have to think about college coaching, I think psychology is a pretty good major to be able to move into the realms of coaching.
It is. And it's funny.
And probably for being a deputy AD as well. Huh?
Well, I think there's some requirements that should be put in place these days because, just the support and I think basic understanding we all need so that we can, put our athletes and staff in contact with those that are really experts in that field. I think it's a great base, but it really did help me because, when you're going through in my case, a counseling program, you're actually doing a lot of practice. And so you're doing these, in class, you're, pick a partner and go through these exercises. And I felt like that's what I was doing
coaching
when I got to coaching. Yeah. I'm like, okay, so how do I listen? How do I really hear? How do I navigate? Because you quickly figure out in coaching and so much more in what you all do today than what I did even at that time. The coaching is such a small piece of it, right? I mean, it's just a small piece. And so you become in many ways a lot of things to these young people. And I was still a kid myself, trying to figure out how do you best, support and lead and help them have a great experience from a sports standpoint, but really help prepare them for the next 40 years of their life.
So did you have a time where you had that crossroads where you had finished grad school, you had coaching, and then you kind of had to know which way you were going to pivot?
Yeah, it happened relatively quick. So I was there for a year doing the grad school thing, and it was a part-time. I mean, it's nothing like today, right? So it's a part-time coaching job, and I'm waiting tables, and which I loved. I always say I'll go back and wait tables if these doesn't work out. So, but the head coach at the time, I was at a Division II school, was a part-time position, and his full-time job took him out of state, like 10 days before preseason the next year. And I was always like the youngest in my class to begin with. So here I am, I think I would have been 23, And it's like 10 days beforehand, and they hire me as the interim coach, and I make it through the first 6 months, and then they give me the full-time job. They offer me the full-time job. So I decided pretty quickly, not so much about taking that job, but then, when you're trying to get licensed, it takes, that's a full-time thing in and of itself in terms of what I would have needed to do to become a licensed therapist. So that's where the path went.
I think it's fun hearing these stories. There's always a moment like that, that kind of just something opens up and then you're presented with it and then off you go.
Right.
At Oak Knoll, our mission is to provide exceptional retirement living and health services through life care. I'm Steve Rowe, Executive Director. We are a not-for-profit life plan community and have served Iowa City for more than 55 years. Our team helps residents create home by living our values of caring, respect, enthusiasm, awareness, teamwork, and encouragement. If you're looking at retirement options, visit our website at oakknoll.com. We want you to lead life your way. Go Hawks!
Join Gary Dolphin and Bobby Hansen for Hawk Talk with Fran McCaffrey each week at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Coralville. Hawk Talk is 90 minutes of discussion about Iowa basketball. Check out HawkeyeSports.com for more information.
One thing that I wanted to talk to you about is as you went through coaching and having those experiences, which I have felt working with you since the fall, I can feel that in you because you really have an understanding on the ground of coaching and of being a student athlete. So that is, I think just an incredible asset as an administrator, just to be able to have been like, I know what it's like to lose a recruit. I know what it's like to win a huge game. I know what it's like to have a disappointing loss. And all of those things just really are comforting because that's kind of on a daily basis what our coaches always go through. And you have that personal experience of going through that. But at some point you probably realized I'm kind of interested in some admin opportunities. So how did all of that work out for you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I miss coaching every day.
Do you?
I still do. Because you can't build that same sort of connection. And you do find in other ways, I think, you hope you're contributing, directly to their experience, I think from a distance. And we all choose how to connect to coaches and teams, but I do miss that every day. In Division II, everybody wears multiple hats. And so, you kind of get the basics down. Like, did they figure out how to, get a lineup and get everybody on the, in the van or on the bus or whatever it might be. And then they start slowly adding things to your plate. And by slowly, I mean, like, there's a new one every month. So, oh, hey, by the way, can you teach some classes? This you're going to do some, oversee the equipment area and do some ordering, get some experience in compliance, which I always enjoyed all of those things.
Yeah.
And, but at first, even while I was enjoying it, you'd be thinking like, well, how does that impact my team? And then it got easier and easier, I think, to think about what decisions and what things we needed to do that would be good for the whole, regardless of what that meant for my program. And also got exposed to some national positions. So I was on the women's soccer committee, and then the Division I Final Four was in town and was a part of supporting that. And so I just, I got intrigued with the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Is I think where is what tipped the scale.
Yeah.
So,
and what year was that when you kind of thought, I'm going to apply?
So I'd coached all in about 12 years and then started at Butler. I think that would have been like in 2008.
Okay.
Was my first out of coaching job, and and landed at another incredibly special place. So
tell us about the position and talk a little bit about Butler and what you learned there.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of student services focus, so compliance, overseeing academics, and and that also was a small shop, and I think because they needed to set it up that way, sport oversight, and and I served as a senior woman administrator. I think my background, because I think today, how did I get that? How did
Yeah.
I get that job? I still don't know. But Barry Collier, who is still the athletic director there, I think it was a piece of, you were already juggling a lot of those things and, valuing the coaching experience as you transitioned. And so, again, it's one of those, you just know how fortunate you are when you land in a place where there are really, really great role models and great people. From our athletic director I got to work with one of the most phenomenal coaches and people I think I'll ever work with in my lifetime. And Brad Stevens, who's obviously now with the Boston Celtics, but many other coaches and people there who are just phenomenal. And so it was a place that, I embraced me and allowed me to grow and help me grow alongside of them. So
Tell us a little bit about Brad Stevens. What did you learn from him, and what are your takeaways?
Yeah, I get asked all the time, is he really that great? And I'm like, yeah, he just is as a person. And somebody else can judge his basketball ability, which I think he's proven over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's really just his character. But I think his ability to be completely authentic, to balance that relational side with, he's incredibly smart. And strategic in whatever framework you want to put that in, whether that's X's and O's or just understanding how an organization functions and or how to build a culture of a program and respond to positives and respond to crises and those types of things. And
what a great person to have and to be able to.
He really was for so many
have
people.
Some conversations with and run some puzzles by. That's just
right.
awesome.
Yeah. And he's just, he's been phenomenal and grateful that I've been able to, stay connected. And he's always willing to, pick up the phone when you call and those types of things. So, you get fortunate when you have those people that, cross your path.
I love that. That's fun to hear.
Yeah.
So from Butler, kind of where was your next stop?
So it's a good transition with Brad because I almost didn't take the next job because I thought, well, I'll never get to work alongside of and Barry and others people that I really believe in, and so maybe I shouldn't take the next opportunity. After about 2 months later, by the way, he got hired by the Boston Celtics. So it's a reminder that we all have to choose our own path. But yeah, from there I went to the University of Minnesota and. Again, I've loved every place I went, so it's kind of like I'm a bad moving critic because I just think every place is special for different reasons. They teach you different things. There's different challenges. There's different opportunities, and but and again, it really my time there allowed me to expand. What
was your
oversight
role there?
And,
yeah.
So I'm a member of the senior staff and. Added some development work, so some fundraising, a little more concretely to the portfolio, and obviously the scope of being in a Big Ten institution was significantly larger. So
one thing I've heard you talk about, which I think is so interesting, is just as you go through administration, being able to develop that financial acumen. Mm-hmm. And it seems like when I look at your path, that probably started to really come into focus when you got to Minnesota.
Yeah. Well, there was a period of time right before I left Butler where our CFO moved on. And so I really got to oversee that for a short period of time, but that was a little bit of a launching pad. And I think if I had it to do over college to do over again, because I probably would have majored in math or statistics or business. So that was always I felt like that was always a strength of mine and an interest. So that was probably a piece of it. But then I started to understand just the complexities of finance, and was just intrigued with that side of the business. You learn a little bit more about it and ask a lot of questions and try to spend time with the folks
it's such an
doing
important part of running any organization, but as collegiate athletics has grown into such an incredible amount of resources and money, and the organization has become so large, I just think it's invaluable to have women who are being able to have a seat at the table with budget.
Yeah. I think it's important, always to have, I think, diverse perspectives when you're looking at those things, and particularly in areas maybe where they haven't been sitting previously. And I think, it's particularly in college athletics today, we just think more. And okay, so you've got more money and figure out how to spend it. It's not that complex. And I don't think that's not exactly how we function in a day-to-day world, right? So, whether it's regardless where your resources come from, whether it's from a broadcast agreement or from philanthropy, but it's all our responsibilities as it is here at Iowa. No matter how many zeros are, is you need to be really good stewards of your resources and make sure that where you're putting them is making the most significant impact that they can. And that part of the puzzle is fun.
Yeah. And to have that experience at Butler and then at a Big Ten institution where budgets are different, but just being able to have both perspectives, again, just gaining more and more insights into the uniqueness and the complexity of different organizations.
Yeah.
So from Minnesota, you moved on to UConn.
I did, yes. We had some leadership transition at Minnesota, and so was part of the reason I made made a change there. But I had some great experience as the interim athletic director at Minnesota, which is really when you started saying, like, maybe I do have a desire to be in leadership roles consistently, and maybe I can.
Oh, that's cool.
It's sort of that aha moment of like, well, could I? Well, I don't know. I am. It doesn't, you were sort of forced into that. And so had some great supporters during that process. And actually the first time, that's really when I connected with Gary Barta for the first time was while I was in that role and in the Big Ten. But I'd worked with David Benedict, who's now the AD at UConn. And so, again, another phenomenal opportunity to go and sort of, he was great and let's build your plate. What else do you need? What do you want it to look like? And then, you're surrounded again by some pretty phenomenal coaches and it was neat. I hadn't lived on the East Coast and, Connecticut obviously has a tremendous history in a lot of sports, not just women's basketball, but men's basketball, women's soccer team had been historically good. So just field hockey won a national championship when I was there.
Wow.
And so again, you sort of soak it all in and see what you can learn.
And you've had some really interesting leadership roles, which you're currently holding in women's basketball, the NCAA, chairing the committees. Did that start at UConn?
Well, actually at Ball State, and I'm no longer on the women's basketball committee.
Oh,
now.
I thought you were.
Well, because they're tied to your conference affiliation, so it was sort of this. I had to choose, so I had to give that up when I took this role, because again, that's sort of how they get assigned. But yeah, I had been involved in some committee work previously, and so had been on the soccer committee, and a lot of times you start in the sport that you know. But to get that opportunity that ultimately came while I was at Ball State, but I think the background and the time I'd spent at UConn and around, that program probably helped position me to be on the committee, by the time I arrived at Ball State. So
at Ball State, you take over as the athletic director.
Yeah.
How exciting is that?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's you still have those moments of can I do this? Am I ready to do this? But it was just a really fun opportunity. The president there, his name's Jeff Mearns, is phenomenal. I just can't say enough about his leadership. He was a former Division I athlete, which is just almost unheard of as a collegiate president. So loved athletics, but just learned so much from him, and he was incredibly supportive.
I love hearing about this.
Well, I call him, I don't know if he would like me to say this, but I call him the real life Atticus Finch. I mean, he was a lawyer at an early point in his career, very successful one, and then got into education. But I don't know if I've ever met anybody who truly lives their values the way that he does. And not in a way that he's enforcing them with everybody else, but it's just this phenomenal way to watch how he uses them to guide his decision making and to build a culture and to help everybody else determine what are the values then of the institution, and then are we living those, and how do we build infrastructure and all those things to make sure you're successful in that. So. And that would be one, just one way. And he taught me a lot, and I'm just so appreciative of the time that I have with him. And
well, he's one smart man to know to hire you as his athletic director. It's interesting. I've had an earlier conversation with you, and you had mentioned him too. And I just love love being able to follow leaders. So I follow him on Twitter now, actually, just because, and I've noticed some of the things he says and the way he leads the institution, which I find just really, really interesting. And how wonderful to be, at all of these stops, these different people that have come into your life and have shaped you and, been able to encourage you and believe in you. And you just kind of made such an impact at Ball State. You've been recognized nationally, Women's Administrator, National Administrator of the Year, Executive. We are so proud of all of the things you've achieved. And what made this move back to Iowa the right time? I'm so grateful you're here, but what was it about? Because you had a great mentor at Ball State and you were obviously in a great position there. Why come to the University of Iowa?
Yeah. Well, I think all of those things and anything you accomplish there is really about the people that surround it. And I had a great, great team I got to work with. And in addition to, to President Mearns, but, again, it's one of those crossroads that I think you just agonize over, is this the right thing to do? Because I certainly wasn't looking, to make that particular move. I enjoyed it there. I felt like we had done some good things and still had a lot to do, and yet you're at this crossroads in the college athletic landscape, which really was a critical piece of that. And not that I couldn't continue to learn and grow there, but there's so much going on, I think nationally right now and at this point in time where the decisions are going to impact every level of Division I. And 2 and 3 for that matter. But I think you're in a different space in being able to impact those and navigate those, at an institution like Iowa. And so the opportunity to come and learn from Gary's leadership and be a part of who the Big Ten is and the history of Iowa. And Iowa women's athletics, I mean, those are significant pulls. And so as hard as it was from a personal standpoint to move on with the connections I had there, I just really felt like this was another opportunity to be part of something that has been special for a long time, and to help them grow, and for me to be able to grow my skill set during what we know is just another influx point in our industry.
Definitely. I've thought many times that, on a daily basis, NCAA collegiate landscape is changing. I mean, maybe we can talk in a little bit about the new NCAA guidelines that were just released last week that are really transformative in many, many ways. And so, having leaders at our institutions right now that are going to be able to steer this ship in the right way as we are navigating all of these new waters, I think is so incredibly important. And I've felt that many times, goodness, this is so exciting to be able to have your leadership and your perspective here, especially at all these different institutions that really round out a perspective that is going to be needed, because I feel like at every turn we've got opportunities to make changes, even pretty soon probably on the congressional level within collegiate athletics. What's your take on where we are and where we're going? Obviously, we've got changes in the Big Ten and changes nationally right now.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. I mean, leadership is incredibly important. So while all of these things are going on, I don't know, a place where we've got President Wilson, and I mean, how phenomenal is it to have somebody like that that's leading the institution, and Gary's experience. And, I've said to as I've started to get to know the staff here, like this is one of the things that excites me is the change. And yes, it comes with difficult decision making, but you've got the ability to try and say, hey, what is most important for student athletes here, certainly at the University of Iowa, but nationally, and then how do we leverage that? How do we leverage the strengths that we have here on campus, and to figure out how to make sure the experience we provide them, the commitment we make for them to be competitively successful, to graduate, to do it the right way, and how do we leverage all of those pieces in a way that makes sense for us? And when I say that, we haven't had as much autonomy to do that in the way the rules were structured previously. Mm-hmm. So there's some freedom being given, which I think is where there's some anxiety,
Yep.
how does that impact the competitive, playing field, and how is that leveled if it ever was? But now you've got some ability to, I think, figure out what's the best path for the Hawkeyes, and to put those puzzle pieces together. And it's really exciting to get to be a part of that. And I know, just like you do, I mean, the experience that you and I both were fortunate to have as student athletes, obviously, regardless of whether we would have chosen to stay in the field, it's just been incredibly impactful. And I want that. I want that for our young men and for our young women. And I think they gives them the ability to go out and be great in whatever they do professionally, but to be tremendous teammates in the community and tremendous teammates in their own family circle. And I think it's just so valuable that you want to be a part of making sure that endures.
I've always been so proud of the way we've been able to lead with values here at the University of Iowa, and definitely, like you talked about, in the history, and as we move forward with our new vision. I think, was it been 5 months, 4 months? Has it been?
It'll be 4 months, and I guess at the end of January.
End of January.
Yeah.
Gosh, okay. Well, it's gone by fast, but kind of a little bit of your overall thoughts about the University of Iowa, your duties. We'll let our Hawkeye community know what your oversights are, your projects, and what's going to keep you busy here for the rest of this year.
Yeah. Well, the first thing you notice, and I hope all of our athletes remember this as they kind of, graduate, make choices in life. But you don't make choices for the brand or, the place or the title you get to wear. But if you make them for people and really feeling like there's a value alignment there, I think you're just going to, feel so fulfilled. And so easy on, I kept saying this just feels comfortable, even though I didn't know how to get any place or, know exactly how to best contribute along the way. It just feels really comfortable. But I think there's a real sense of community that you feel within athletics, but across campuses. I've had an opportunity to meet, other staff across campus. And then you get to branch out and get to know alums and our amazing contributors and community supporters. And that's really what you get here. It's a community, it's a family of people, and that's just, feels really phenomenal to be a part of. So, just that part's really exciting. And, from a duty standpoint, we'll get to, support the department in ways that, can be helpful, to Gary's leadership, of course. And certain sports I'll work with a little bit more closely than others, but have the ability to oversee some, the business office and HR. I'll have an opportunity to engage a little bit, I think, on with the foundation and some fundraising activities, and as you point out, navigate these, one or two changes that seem to be coming our way from the Transformation Committee, Division I Council, or Congress, or however those play out. So.
Well, you have a lot on your plate, but I'm so happy you're here. I also felt, knew your bio and knew your accomplishments before I actually had a chance to meet you in person. But you're warm and authentic and a great, incredible listener. And everybody that has had the chance to meet you over the course of these short 4 months is so impressed and just so happy that you're here, Beth. So I just really encourage all of our Hawkeye community members, if you have the chance to say hi to Beth at a Carver game or at Kinnick or walking around the campus, be sure to introduce yourself. We are so lucky to have her here and on staff in terms of our leadership group. So very exciting. Best days are ahead and onward. And this was a great way to start out 2023 and our HERkys Voice for this new season. Thank you, Beth.
Oh, thank you, Sasha.
Well, as always, we'll be back next week, and I appreciate all you guys. Go Hawks.
This has been HERkys Voice. The mission of the HERkys program is to help our Hawkeye community learn, support, and engage with Iowa women's athletics. To learn more about the HERkys initiative, visit herkys.hawkeyesports.com. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the HERkys Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.